What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the OTS 2019 MLB Season Preview. We're going to be going over everything today within the MLB. We're going to be going over playoffs, division standings, whatever it may be. We're going to kick off with our power rankings right now. This is the first time we're doing anything like this, like a special podcast. Again, we went live yesterday with the Open Table Sports podcast. Right now, it's just strict MLB. Obviously, if you clicked on this video, you're watching it now since we're live. If you're watching it after, obviously we're not live. It does say MLB on in the description, so don't be surprised if we're talking all MLB because some people do that. They'll click on a video and then complain what's in it. So we are talking all MLB. If you don't want to hear that, click out. So we're going to get into our power rankings right now. So we're just going to run it down quickly who we have, and then we're going to go over each team. So we're going to go bottom to top. We have Orioles at 30, Marlins, Royals, Tigers, Rangers, White Sox, Mariners, Padres, Diamondbacks, Blue Jays, Giants, Reds, Pirates, Rockies, Angels, Rays, Mets, Athletics, Twins, Nationals, Cubs, Cardinals, Phillies, Indians, Braves, Dodgers, Red Sox, Brewers, Astros, Yankees. So right now we're going to talk about the Orioles. There's really not much to talk about. They're going to be last in the division. It's pretty simple. There's not really a toss-up or anything like that. We really don't even have to talk about their lineup because it's really not going to matter. They starting pitching, Dylan Bundy, Alex Cobb, Andrew Kashner. Those are their top three pitchers. Even if you put their top ace, I wouldn't even call him an ace, but for them, he's their ace. Dylan Bundy, you put him on any other team, he's at most maybe a starting two pitcher with another shitty team. So, and then their closers, Michael Givens, he's all right. And then you look at their infield, Chris Davis, Jonathan Villar. Other than that, they really don't have anyone. Trey Mancini, and then Mark Trumbo. But we have them last at 30. They really have nothing to look forward to. And then at 29, we have the Marlins, another team there's really not much to talk about. Talk about a shitty team getting even worse. There's really not much else. So, and then the Marlins, starting pitching, literally no one again. Jose Urena, Wenyan Chen, Dan Straley, Trevor Richards, Caleb Smith. Their bullpen is actually not too bad. You have Sergio Romo. He could hold down the fort.
That's not going to be nothing when your offense can't score runs.
Yeah. They have Starlin Castro, Brian Anderson, Peter O'Brien, Curtis Granderson, Luis Brinson. Their offense is not good. We have them at 29. There's really not much to say. At 28, I forget who we have. Again, Dom's got our.
We got the Kansas City Royals.
Not much promise. The bottom you can really toss up. You could literally put in the same category: Orioles, Tigers, Royals, White Sox. You can kind of put them all in one big batch. Padres, maybe Giants, depending on how well they do. Maybe Pirates. It's going to be the same bottom tier. Mariners, Rangers. There's really not, a big difference. Dan Duffy, Ian Kennedy, Brad Keller, Willie Peralta, Jake Diekman, Brad Boxberger. Their bullpen's not that bad. Offense is going to be a little bit of a struggle for them. Chris Owings, Martin Maldonado, Salvador Perez is out for the year. Outfielder Alex Gordon, Billy Hamilton, Brian Goodwin. They're not looking that great. Their team is good enough to probably get third in the Central, and that's how bad that division is to get third in that division. But third, fourth, and fifth in that division is literally going to be a toss-up. Probably the Tigers are going to be last. But it'll be interesting for that division because there's really not much going on. So if you look at 27, we do have the Tigers. That's another dumpster fire. As we said yesterday, Michael Fulmer is going to most likely have Tommy John surgery. Jordan Zimmerman. They have Matthew Boyd, Tyson Ross. Bullpen is another dumpster fire for them. Miguel Cabrera at first, Josh Harrison at second, Jordy Mercer, That's their infield. John Hicks, a catcher, Grayson Griner. These guys are scrubs. Nick Castellanos. I mean, they have like no one there. And then you have the Rangers at 26. Again, who cares if someone's 26 or 29? We said that before. If you're going to suck, you're going to suck. If we put someone at 7 and they end up being 22, that's a big difference. But if you're like 5 or 6 spots out of, like a ranking, doesn't really matter. And then you look at the Rangers, Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, Drew Smiley, Edison Volquez, bullpen, really no one there. Guzman, Odor, Ashubo Cabrera, Elvis Andrews.
Their offense isn't going to be that bad.
Joey Gallo.
Their pitching is the real problem.
Nomar Mazzara, Shinsu. Pitching.
They got some nice young guys in Gallo and
their offense
Nomar that will probably take at least a half step forward this year.
I would say their offense would be like mid-tier.
Yeah, it's the pitching that's the biggest problem with them.
Yeah, and then you have the White Sox. I mean, from 30 probably all the way until 20, it could end up being a toss-up. But I think Marlins and Orioles are guaranteed locks to be the last seeds. But anything from 20 to 30, I think is going to be pretty much, toss-up. Look at the White Sox. No one at starting pitching. Not really big names. Yeah, you might look at stats. It might be pretty good, but it's different when you hit the season. Their bullpen is actually not going to be that bad. Alex Colomb, Nate Jones, and then their closer's Kelvin Herrera right now. That's 3 pretty decent guys, and then Dylan Covey as well. So I think they have 4 solid to mid-tier guys in their bullpen right now. Yonder Alonso, Yohan Moncada, Yomer Sanchez, Tim Anderson, Wellington Castillo. That infield's actually not that bad. I think that'll be a pretty, mid-tier infield. Then you look at their outfield. It's not that great. John Jay, Daniel Palka, Adam Engel. And then you have Jose Abreu as a DH. So then we have the White Sox 25. 24, we have the Mariners. Mariners, we saw them trade a lot of players on their team. So they really have nothing added. But right now they're 2-0. They're undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, they got off to a good start in Tokyo.
So you never know. They have Kikuchi, Leak, Marco Gonzalez, Felix Hernandez, Wade LeBlanc. That could actually end up being maybe mid-tier, a little bit above, depending on production.
Solid rotation.
It could get them through. The bullpen is awful. And then you look at the outfield. You got Mitch Haniger. He's top center fielder in the league, I would say. Domingo Santana. And then, Ichiro retired. Then you got Braden Bishop and Malik Smith. So, I mean, that's a pretty decent outfield. Then you have Edwin Encarnacion at DH. Then you look at infield, Tim Beckham, Omar Narvaez at catcher, and then Ryan Keeley at third, D. Gordon at second, and then first base you have Jay Bruce. That Mariners team, we have them right now at 24. I think, you might see them maybe at like 18-ish up to there, but I think, their range is going to be like 18 to 24, I would say for them. I think because that infield, it's solid, outfield is solid, but bullpen is going to be a struggle, and starting pitching is really going to be either really bad or pretty decent. So I don't think there's going to be much in between for this team. I think they're either going to be, either mid-tier or bottom. So there's really not much hope for them. And then we have the Padres. I think the Padres, I would put them in the same category as the Mariners. Same thing. Starting pitching is not looking that good. Bullpen is actually looking pretty decent, I would say. Kirby Yates, Aaron Loop, Adam Warren, Craig Stamen. It'll be, Brian Mitchell. I think that'll be pretty decent. And then you have infield Eric Hosmer, Ian Kinsler, Manny Machado. I think that's a pretty good infield. Luis Urias, he's pretty decent. He's young. The good thing about this team is it's young. We were saying that a couple weeks ago. We've said it before. The infield is probably going to be the highlight of this team with Hosmer, Kinsler, and Machado. Then you have Austin Hedges at catcher, and then Francisco Maella behind him. So I think their catching position is pretty good because it's young. That's like the main thing with this team is it's young. That's like the highlight of this team. There's really not much, veteranship within the team. Then you look at outfield, Manuel Margot, Will Myers, Travis Jankowski, Hunter Renfroe.
I like Hunter Renfroe.
That outfield, it's same thing. Solid, but it'll get you through the season. But the main thing is pitching. I don't think their lineup is going to be much of a problem, but it does have room to grow. That's the thing.
Their number one starter would be a number 4 in any other team.
Yeah, I mean,
at best.
Yeah. The next we have the Diamondbacks. Same thing. They're going to be in that 18 to about 24 range. You got Zach. Actually, if you look at their team, pitching is actually probably the highlight of it. Zach Greinke, Robbie Ray, Zach Godley, Luke Weaver, Merrill Kelly. That's a pretty good starting pitching. I think that could be mid-tier to probably top. Not like top 5, but I would say
at best maybe like between 10 and 15.
Yeah, that's like, mid to top. I would say top is 1 to 10.
They might scratch top 10 if like everything goes perfect for them.
And then bullpen, you got Greg Holland, Andrew Chafin, Yohan Lopez, TJ McFarland, Archie Bradley.
If Archie Bradley gets no, if he's consistent, he could be a very dependable closer. But last year he was very, very shaky at times.
Yeah, that bullpen is going to be, I think the ceiling is going to be like around like 17, but I don't see the bullpen doing much. The infield is actually looking pretty good. Jake Lamb, Eduardo Escobar, Nick Ahmed, Kentel Marte, Wilmer Flores. I think that could definitely be like a top 15 infield, I would think.
A lot of underrated guys in there.
Yeah. And then outfield's actually looking pretty decent. Steven Souza Jr., Adam Jones, Jared Dyson, and David Peralta. I would slap the same thing on the outfield, probably like around mid-tier. But the major thing is going to be bullpen and just depth of the team, because I think like one injury for the outfield is really going to do it in, because right now you're very thin because you just have Souza, Jones, and Peralta. I think that's a pretty good outfield.
That is.
Infield, same thing, depth. I think if this team stays healthy and plays to its full ability, I think their ceiling could probably be around like 13 or 14, a little bit different. Yeah, so it's a little bit different now we're going to get into some better teams that could, if everything goes right, could maybe scratch a wild card. Not lock.
No, it depends on what league they're in.
But yeah, like a wild card picture type of thing.
Yeah, they could potentially make a run.
Yeah, so next we're looking at the Blue Jays at 21. Starting pitching, I don't think is going to be too bad. Marcus Stroman, Aaron Sanchez, Matt Shoemaker, Ryan Barucki, and then Clayton Richard. Also, they signed Clay Buchholz a couple weeks ago. I think the major thing for this team is just bullpen. Infield is not looking that great. Justin Smoke, Devin Travis, Brandon Drury, Freddie Galvis, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., then Luke Maile or Maley, whatever it is. He's a scrub at catcher. Outfield, Jessica Hernandez, Billy McKinney, Kevin Pillar, Randall Grichuk. Then your DH is Kendrys Morales. That outfield is actually pretty decent. I think it's solid.
It's one of the maybe like top 10 defensive outfields.
Yeah, it's a good defensive.
Offensively, struggle a little bit.
Yeah, offensively he's going to struggle, but if you look at overall, I think their ceiling is mid-tier for outfield. Infield, it's going to be a mess.
Aside from Justin Smoke, they don't really have.
And Freddie Galvis. Freddie Galvis is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a 246 career average, but I mean he's good defensively.
Yeah, he's your prototypical shortstop. Really good defensively, subpar offensively.
Yeah. And then next up at 20, we have the Giants. Same thing here. Starting pitching could end up scratching maybe top 10. Madison Bumgarner, Jeff Samardzija, Derek Holland, Derek Rodriguez, Drew Pomeranz, and then Johnny Cueto is injured, but he'll be coming back. I think once Cueto comes back, I think that starting pitching is good. I think the bullpen is going to be a little bit good. We were talking about the Giants before the podcast started. Watson's good. Melancon is solid. Stratton's decent. Blatch is decent. Will Smith is a solid closer. Then the infield, you have Brandon Belt, Joe Panik, Evan Longoria. Pablo Sandoval is there as well. We know the power he has. Yeah, he's not like an everyday guy, but he still adds veteranship and a pretty decent backup who could also play DH if they head over to some AL fields. Then they have Brandon Crawford. He's a top 10, maybe top 5 shortstop in the MLB. Then they got Buster Posey, top 5 catcher in the MLB.
He's number 2, I think.
Yeah. And then you look at outfield. Outfield's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Mac Williamson, Steven Degar. It's going to be a total mess at outfield for the Giants. At 20, we don't see much for them, but the thing that's going to help them is just starting their pitching is going to be better than their field. Outfield's going to be a major problem. It's probably going to be bottom 5, to be honest.
Probably, yeah.
Infield, it's probably another, mid-tier. Infield, it's crazy because we're seeing like a bunch of mid-tier because, as we said before, 30 to 20 is like a toss-up. So it could really be, it's not going to be like 26 is going to be way ahead of 28. They're all going to be around the same thing because some teams, like we've been saying, might have really good pitching but a bad infield, or a really good outfield, bad infield. So it just varies for each team in what they have, what they've added, what they've lost. Next we have the Reds. They're going to be at 19. They're probably going to be a sleeper team. They're going to be another team that could maybe shoot for a wild card, but it's going to be tough because of the division with the Cubs, Cardinals, and Brewers. In that, they add a lot of people: Sonny Gray, Tanner Rourke, with their starting pitching, Luis Castilla, Anthony Descalfani, whatever it is. These are 4. Bullpen's going to be a little bit of a struggle for them. Rasil Iglesias, Zach Duke, Matt Bowman, Michael Lorenzen. It's going to be Jared Hughes. It's an all right bullpen. Then you look at, infield. I think their infield is actually really good. Scooter Gennett, Joey Votto, Eugenio Suarez, Jose Peraza, and then you have Tucker Barnhart. And then outfield is actually not that bad. You have Matt Kemp, Jesse Winker, Scott Schebler, and then Yasiel Puig. I think that's a pretty good outfield, plus the infield. But again, the major thing is pitching. Mm-hmm. We've been saying that with a bunch of teams, but hey, you never know. Maybe they sign some people that are left on the market. Maybe they pick up Gio Gonzalez if he opts out of his Yankee deal, because he can opt out by April 20th. So who knows? Maybe pitchers get cut. Maybe they trade. Who knows? But I think that team, fielding wise and offensively, I think it's pretty good. Pitching's just going to be the major question if they can get into the top, 15 or 10, whatever it may be. So the next up, we have the Pirates again, NL Central. Pirates are another questionable team. Pitching, Chris Archer, Talon, Trevor Williams, Joe Musgrove, King Kingham. Again, starting pitching is going to be a major question for them. Bullpen-wise, Keon Keller, Richard Rodriguez, Kyle Crick, nothing crazy. Felipe Vasquez is our closer right now. Nothing really to look for pitching-wise. Then you look at infield. Infield is actually pretty decent. Josh Bell, and then you have Jose Ozuna behind him, Adam Frazier at second, third, Jung-Ho Kang, and then you have Eric Gonzalez, and then catcher Francisco Cervelli. I think that infield is not too bad, but I think you could hold down the fort.
Yeah, it's solid.
I wouldn't say it would. I think it's lower than mid-tier, I would say. And then outfield is actually not going to be that bad. Corey Dickerson, Starling Marte, and Gregory Polanco, and then you have Lonnie Chisenhall. I think that could actually end up being mid-tier to above mid-tier outfield this year. Go look at Dickerson's stats. He was hitting above 290 last year, I believe. And then Marte, he's a solid center fielder, and then Gregory Polanco as well. We have them at 18. They could end up being above, 15. I don't really have any doubts within the outfield. It's just really infield if they could produce more than they do. And then starting pitching is just the major question for this team. Next up, we have the Rockies at 17. I know some people might say they're a little bit low, but I'll give you the reasons why. Starting pitching is going to be a pretty decent question for this team. German Marquez, Kyle Freeland, John Gray, Tyler Anderson, Antonio Sensatella. I think that's mid-tier, I would say. Mid-tier, a little bit below mid-tier. I would give it about that 25 to maybe like 18 range.
I mean, considering that they're going to be pitching half their games at Coors Field, I mean, it it's actually, I mean, in my opinion, it's a rather underrated group. It could definitely be a lot worse. But I mean, last year they did
It depends on development.
pretty well. I
yeah,
mean,
because right
Freeland
now,
had what, like a sub 3 at Coors Field. That's really really hard to do.
yeah, Freeland was pretty decent. I mean, he's also young, which is a good thing. The experience on their team, 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, 4 years, 2 years. That's just their starting pitching. So not one of them is above 5 years in experience in the MLB. So there's only room to grow. So I'm not saying they're going to be shitty. I'm just saying right now they're probably going to be 25 to 18, but they still have development to get in that maybe top 10, I would say, in the future. Not this year, I would say they're top 10, but maybe in the future they could possibly be top 10. Bullpen, it's a very strong bullpen. Scott Oberg, Brian Shaw, Jake McGee, Mike Dunn, Chad Bettis. Closer, Wade Davis, he's top 10. Closer, maybe top 5 in the league. So I have no problem in their bullpen. Then infield is looking really good. Daniel Murphy, Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story. That's looking really good for them. I think Garrett Hampson as well. He's young. He's up and coming. I think he's going to be pretty solid. Then you look at Chris Iannetta and Tony Walters at catcher. I think that's
pretty solid duo.
That's solid. Yeah, it'll get them through the season. And then you look at outfield, which I think is pretty good. Ian Desmond, Charlie Blackmon, and David Dahl. I think that's a pretty good outfield for them. I think just the major questions are going to be a little bit, of aging on their team. Ian Desmond has 10 years in the league. Charlie Blackmon still produces. Catching is going to be a little bit of a question for them. Chris Iannetta, who has 13 years in the league now, looking at his production. Daniel Murphy, looking at him, 11 years in the league. He can still produce, but just looking at possible injury questions, bullpen is solid. Just the major questions for them are just going to be, catching and, starting pitching. So that's why we have them at 17 right now, but their ceiling could probably be around the 12 spot. They'll be in contention for the wild card. Next, we have Angels at 16. I have them, I don't think they're going to be that great, but the reason why I have them at 16 is because I think their starting pitching is actually going to be pretty decent. Andrew Heaney, Matt Harvey, Trevor Cahill, Tyler Skaggs, Yami Berea, and then Shohei Ohtani, who could start here and there. But if you go look at their stats for the starting pitching, it's actually pretty good.
I thought that Ohtani wasn't going to pitch this year.
He probably could, maybe towards the end of the year, depending on his development. But I know he's, having the surgery or whatever, the Tommy John. But, who knows the development? Because, some people, they'll come back early from pitching. But I know the initial report was him being out for all of the 2019 season for pitching. But you never know with development and stuff like that.
If the Angels were smart, they wouldn't try and rush him back.
I mean, unless they're in contention for wild card.
But I mean, he's so young. Like if you rush him back and then something happens, I mean, I'd rather just play it safe because he's really, really young and really, really good.
Yeah, and then I see a strength, not really a strength, but I see Hansel Robles, Justin Anderson, Luis Garcia. I think their bullpen is going to be pretty solid. Cody Allen, I think it's going to be good. I think their infield is going to be slept on this year. Justin Bohr, Zach Kozar, and Dalton Simmons. That'll be pretty good. And then you have David Fletcher. He's young as well, so his development is going to be key to this team. And then Tommy La Stella. That's going to be another one. And then Jonathan Lucroy at catcher. He's a top catcher. I'm not saying he's one of the best, but I'm saying
he's an above average offensive catcher.
Yeah, he's mid-tier to maybe like top 10 scratching it. And then you look at outfield, which I think is another strength for this team. Cole Calhoun, Mike Trout, and then Justin Upton. And then you have Albert Pujols at DH. So that's why I see this team maybe, since the AL is going to have like 8 or 9 really bad teams. Not really bad, but I would say compared to, Yankees, Red Sox, and Astros,
so
and
top heavy.
The Brewers and the Phillies and the Braves of the world, I think they're going to have 8, teams. So I think they could compete for the second wild card, along with the Rays and the Athletics and the Twins. I think those 4 teams are going to be competing for that second spot in the wild card. So that's the Angels at 16, and that right now we have the Rays at 15. That shocked us last year. Didn't really add a lot, but they also really didn't lose a lot per se. Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, Tyler Glasnow. I think that's a really good top 3 for that starting rotation. Other than that, starting pitching is going to be a little bit of a question. Bullpen is going to be not that great for them. So I think that's going to be
their bullpen at times is their rotation.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So that's why I think bullpen's going to be a question for them. They definitely do have depth at bullpen, but not talent. Then you look at their infield. I think their infield is actually pretty decent. G-Man Choi, Joey Wendell, Daniel Robertson, Matt Duffy, Yandy Diaz, Willie Adames, Mike Zunino. I think it could produce. As you're looking at it right now, it's probably, maybe mid-tier to like maybe 25 infield, I would say.
I mean, that's what you would have thought last year about it, but
See, that's the thing. That's why we have them, at 15 here, because last year they shocked us. Maybe this year they could fall off. Maybe last year was a flash in the pan. We don't know. That's why it's the predictions we have based off last year. So basically, we're basing it off last year, who they lost, who they gained, what other teams have lost and gained, within their division and within the league. Then you look at outfield. I think outfield is going to be a strength for them. Tommy Pham, Brandon Lowe, Kevin Kiermaier, Austin Meadows, Heredia, and then you have Avisel Garcia at DH. So I think outfield, I wouldn't call it stacked, but I would say it's talented depth. Not stacked, talented depth. That's what I would say for them. At 15, competing for a wild card. At 14, we have the Mets. This is probably going to be a top storyline in the year. After the past couple of years, the Mets have been, and all the fans have been wanting them to add players, and they added a solid 4 or 5 players.
The biggest thing with them is if they can just stay healthy. Like the last 3-4 years, so many of their big players have been out. That's what's killed them.
Yeah, that's been their question mark.
The potential to be a top team in the NL, but if they don't stay healthy, then it's not going to go well at all.
Well, it all starts with
rotation,
DeGrom and Syndergaard. I mean, if they stay healthy, the rotation can kind of hold its own. I think Zach Wheeler and Matz, they need to stay healthy as well, because there's not much to replace them. And you look at Jason Vargas, he's a solid 5. I mean, it's going to come down to the rotation. If the Mets rotation can manage itself and DeGrom can do what he did last year, the Mets are going to be a contender. It is a tall task.
I think
a 170 ERA.
I think their starting pitching is going to be fine. I think their bullpen, for the first time in a while, is actually going to be held down pretty good. Familia, Zellman, Justin Wilson, Seth Lugo, and then Edwin Diaz. And then Drew Smith as their 5 relieving pitcher. I think relieving pitching is going to be good for them. I think starting pitching is going to be probably top 10 for them this year overall. I think infield's going to be more of the question, with Todd Frazier not really producing anymore. Robinson Cano, he's still good. Jeff McNeil, Jed Lowry. I think infield, you have a couple bright spots, McNeil, Lowry, and Cano.
And they got that kid that's raking in spring training right now.
Yeah, whenever, they bring people up, whatever it may be. Ahmed Rosario as well. I think he's pretty solid. Then you also had Wilson Ramos. So I think, infield for them is going to be mid-tier and maybe top 10, I would say. Jed Lowry, he's been producing. Jeff McNeil still has growth. Robinson Cano, he's been hitting well. Ahmed Rosario, he's a great defensive shortstop. He can also produce offensively at times, kind of shady. Also, Wilson Ramos, he's a top 5 catcher in the league. So I would say that they could possibly scratch maybe top 10. But then you look at outfield, which could be a little bit shaky for them. Brandon Nimmo, Keon Broxton, Yoenis Cespedes, Michael Conforto. Cespedes right now is injured, so you're looking at Conforto, Broxton, and Nimmo. Juan Lagares as well. I would say he's decent. But outfield, I wouldn't consider a strength for them. I would say there's still room to grow. I think if Cespedes wasn't injured and he would play every day, I would say the outfield was better. Because Cespedes, if he's healthy and ready to go, he's a top 10 left fielder in the league. But with him injured and with a lot of an experience with starting, because Broxton really didn't start with the Brewers. Lagares doesn't have a lot of starting, experience behind him. Brandon Nimmo, or Nimmo, whatever it may be, finding Nemo. He has 3 years in the league, so he doesn't have a lot of experience starting, especially. I think the thing that's really going to kill the Mets is their division.
Well, I think if
With
you
that, the Reds announced that Scooter Gennett has a right groin strain. He's going to be out 8 to 12 weeks.
That's a big blow.
That's a big hit for them to start the season. But another team, the Reds, that's another big thing. Tough division. That's going to kill the Reds. It's going to kill the Mets. But also, easy division is going to help a lot of teams. It's going to help the Dodgers.
Mhm.
It's going to help the Astros. And it's going to help the Indians. So there are a couple of teams you could throw both ways. I guess you can call I wouldn't call the AL East easy, but I wouldn't.
It's just those top 3 teams that are really going to be the only ones. I
wouldn't
feel
really call Rays
fighting for anything.
I wouldn't call Rays a hard team. I would just call them a gritty team.
Yeah.
I would call them a gritty team
They're tricky.
that will bust their ass to get top 10. That's what they did last year. They busted their ass and they did better than they thought. Can they do the same this year? That's the major question mark, is if they could do the same, if not more, to where they are. But Mets, hard division is going to kill them. You got Nationals, you got the Phillies and the Braves. So, it's going to be interesting to see.
I could see the Mets, if they are in the playoff hunt come trade deadline, they could trade for a solid outfielder, I think, because that's where they're kind of lacking the most. So if they're kind of, second, third in that division within striking distance, I could see them being buyers instead of sellers like they usually are, and maybe try to go out and get an outfielder to help them.
Well, I know the Tigers, they were trying to trade Nick Castellanos.
That'd be really good for the Mets if they can get him.
Maybe Trey Mancini from the Orioles.
Yeah. I mean, those two teams are bound to be sellers come trade deadline. So
maybe Pirates, if they're not in contention, maybe they get rid of Marte, Polanco, maybe they get rid of Corey Dickerson. I'm looking at teams that might lose out on the playoffs. Maybe Blue Jays, maybe Diamondbacks. If they have another, subpar season, maybe they get rid of Peralta. Who knows what they'll do? Maybe Steven Souza. Maybe Maybe they get rid of Steven Souza. Maybe they trade Adam Jones.
Yeah, I mean Adam Jones, they picked him up for a year, so
you never know, because maybe they're just like, don't really want to have him. Maybe the Mariners, they were selling everyone. They said they didn't want to trade Mitch Haniger. Say they're really bad this year, and they say maybe we should.
I mean, once you kind of not necessarily straight up just give up, but once you get a feel for how your season's going, and if you really actually have a shot, I mean, anything is on the table. There's really nothing that you can say that's not happening.
Oh yeah,
because the way I think of it for sports, technically anyone's on the trade block.
Look at the Giants and Odell. For the longest time, I was like, "Oh, we're not going to trade him," and the next thing I know, we traded him.
That's just how it is in sports.
Yeah. Even like the Steelers and AB, who would have thought? Even a year ago, not even a year ago, the beginning of this season, who would have thought? Week 1,
2 of the top 5 receivers would
be traded. Yeah,
it's just the way that sports is.
Yeah, technically in my mind, anyone's on the trading block for the right price. I know we were talking about the other day about LeBron being traded.
Yeah.
Technically anyone is on the trading block. We've seen top players get traded. We've seen top players even get cut when something happens.
Teams will listen to any and all offers for anybody.
Of course.
That's why whenever
it's just whether or not they feel that what they're getting back is actually worth that player.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's look at the Marlins did trading Yelich, Ozuna. Yeah, they traded
they traded their whole outfield.
Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna. They actually, if they kept their team, they would have Bohr, Stanton,
outfields in baseball.
Yeah, I would call it the best with Stanton, Ozuna, and Yelich.
Yeah,
that's probably the best outfield. And then you look at they would have Justin Bohr if they kept him.
Real Muto behind the plate.
Real Muto, and then you'd have Brian Anderson at third.
That's a really good offense.
And then all you'd have to do was
shore up the pitching a little bit.
Yeah, second and shortstop. Who cares if there's holes there?
They have Starling Castro there, who's not a bad option at second.
Well, they got Castro from the Stanton trade.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
So technically, they wouldn't have him.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, all you'd have to do is spend a little money at because you drafted not drafted, but they were basically homegrown. Most of those guys, they were young when they came in. So I mean, you weren't giving them big contracts. So I don't know. Whatever they were doing, it was dumb. Next, we have the Athletics at 13, another team I would compare to the Reds. Didn't really think much of them, and then they kind of won over 90 games or 80 games, whatever it was.
They won,
97?
Yeah, 97. I think the Rays won 91. So they were that team that everyone was like, they're young. They're not going to do anything. They're maybe mid-tier, top 20 maybe. Then they ended up
Yeah,
doing
in the wild card game.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
wild card game. Even though they lost, I think it's still, good for them because
Yeah, I mean, what in 2017 they won like 60, 70 something games.
Yeah, it was a big
and then come
turnaround.
back next year and win like another like 30 more games. I mean, that's just something to be happy about.
I mean, they just happened to run into a good Yankees team
Mhm.
in the wild card game.
Yeah,
so
I mean, if you're a wild card team going into the AL playoffs, I mean,
and
there's
you're
no
playing,
no easy team.
and I mean you're playing the team with the second best record in the American League. So I mean that's just how the seeds fall in baseball.
I might have to redo our things here. I'm looking at it. I'll switch it on the fly. We'll see how good I do. We'll battle test me.
We got Fires, Marco Estrada, Brett Anderson, Bassett, Frankie Montes. It's a solid starting five.
Yeah, the big thing is that Manaya's out.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
I mean, the bullpen's pretty good. Soria, Rodney, Hendricks, Brooks, Trinan. Trinan was
That bullpen's gonna be top 10 this year again.
Beast last year.
Yeah,
and I mean offensively, Olsen, Profar, Chapman, Simeon, Nick Hunley. I mean it's a really really good team.
it's a solid infield.
Chris Davis mashing 45 home
runs
every year. So I mean,
their outfield is kind of lackluster. I'd say it's not a top outfield. That could be a downside. Just like the Mets, the outside is probably their weakest part of the team.
Yeah, most likely.
Because you got Robbie Grossman, Laureano, Steve Piscotty. Nothing too special. Not names you really are talking about every day. So I mean the A's could get 90 wins. I wouldn't doubt it. But I think they're gonna fall this year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think they're gonna slip to maybe like the mid 80s.
Okay.
Mid 80 win range. I can see them. They won't fall off the cliff, but they're not gonna,
they're not gonna replicate the 97 that they had last year.
And then what they started the season already at
0-2.
0-2, so that doesn't help their case at all.
Gotta go 97 and 63 for the rest of the year.
So next we have the Twins.
Yeah, we have the Twins at 12.
The Twins are an interesting team because on paper they look like a potential playoff team, right?
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people thought last year too, going into the season.
But I think it's even more of a statement now that they've added a lot more. They've definitely, starting pitching is going to be the same for them. Bullpen, they've added a couple pieces. The infield, now they're going to have Tyler Austin for a full season. They got CJ Cron, Jonathan Shoup, Ronald Torreyes, Miguel Sano, we were talking about before, is going to be question mark. Adding Marwin Gonzalez. It's going to be, the outfield's going to be the same. Adding Nelson Cruz, but adding Nelson Cruz, Marwin Gonzalez, Ronald Torreyes, Jonathan Shoup, Tyler Austin's now going to be there for a full season, and then CJ Cron and Blake Parker. That's a bunch of solid additions right there to a team that was already competing for a playoff spot. Now they're going to be even more in contention with those additions, and they kept people.
And I like Byron Buxton. He's a great center fielder. So,
and then you add Eddie Rosario, Jake Cave, and then Max Kepler, and then Michael Reed's going to be another backup for them. I'm telling you, and look, none of those outfielders have above 5 years experience.
Yeah, it's a very young team. So, I mean, there's nothing to look down on the Twins, and I think they can only go up from here.
Yeah, so I think we'll be telling our playoff predictions later, but I
really like them to give the Indians a serious run for the Central
it'd be the first time in years.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them. Right now, what do we have, Matt?
We have Twins at 12.
12. So then at 11, I switch this up a little bit. We have the Nationals at 11. I switched up the top 10 a little bit. Now that I'm thinking, because we did this a couple days ago, me and Dom, but now that I did the division, because when you think of it overall, it's a little bit different from a division because you're looking at the teams within the division. You're kind of like, wow, like this team might do a little bit more than the other in terms of, within the division and additions and stuff like that when you really start to think about it. So we have the Nationals at 11. Interesting for them. Didn't really do good last year. I think they'll have a bounce back year. I think starting pitching for them is going to be a very interesting.
That's
it's the
been
strength of their
for
team.
years.
It's a good question mark. You know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
bad question mark, and then there's good question marks. I think it's a good question mark because, you have Scherzer, Corbin, Strasburg, Anibal Sanchez, and Jeremy Hellickson are going to be the two good question marks for me.
Yeah.
Sanchez had a really good year last year. Hellickson, as a 5-spot guy, he's pretty good. But you look at the experience in the starting pitching, 11 years, 7 years, 9 years, 13 years, 9 years. It's crazy. Their lowest, experienced guy is 7 years.
And that's
their
Corbin,
lowest.
who was the biggest pitching signing of the offseason. So
if Corbin, he does need to replicate his season last year, but just do like 85% of that, and that's easily top rotation in baseball.
this team's going to ride or die the starting pitching.
Oh yeah. Strasburg has to stay healthy though.
Their starting pitcher will be top 10 this year, I believe. Bullpen, Trevor Rosenthal, Kyle Barraclough, whatever his name is. And then you have Sean Doolittle. I think those are 3 solid guys. I think other than that, it's really not looking that great. But 3 solid guys in the bullpen, I think, can get you through the season. I don't think it's really going to put you over the top, but you could not really ride on them, but it could hold down the fort.
Yeah.
There's a couple different words I use. Holding down the fort is another one. Then you look at their
infield looks really, really, really nice though.
Yeah, their infield looks good. Ryan Zimmerman, Matt Adams, Brian Dozier, Wilmer Defoe. He's an underrated player, I believe. Anthony Rendon, and then Trey Turner. I think their infield, Zimmerman, Defoe, Dozier, Rendon, Turner. I don't know. I think we could be looking at maybe that could end up being a top 10 infield, I would say.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I would say mid-tier to scratching top of the top 10.
Yeah.
So, and then you add Yan Gomes and Kurt Suzuki at catcher. That's probably one of the best, I would say, duos. Not like, you know what I mean? Like together, it's a really good duo.
Yeah.
But just Yan Gomes is, top 15. But I would say both of them together is really good. And then Spencer Keyboom, he's good as well. And then Pedro Severino. Those are 4 good catchers. Then you look at outfield, which I think is going to be the major question to this team. You got Adam Eaton, Michael Taylor, Victor Robles, Howie Kendrick, Juan Soto.
Aside from Juan Soto, they're set. Juan Soto is the only piece in that outfield that is set.
Yeah, Howie Kendrick, he's older. He's not really producing as well. Victor Robles, Michael Taylor, he's solid, I would say. And then Adam Eaton, he's pretty good. But I would say the major questions for this team is depth of bullpen and just overall talent in the outfield. But other than that, I think some acquisitions at the trade deadline. I would trade for a relieving pitcher and trade for an outfielder. And I think that's the only pieces they need to do. Is just they only need 2 more positions. It's a reliever and an outfielder. And they could honestly probably contend for, a top seed in that division. That division is going to be such a toss-up. It's going to be insane.
I mean, I this season I can't see them going to the playoffs, but next off season they're going to have money because they didn't spend it on Harper, so they're going to have money to spend. So I could see them doing something big next season.
Yeah.
If there's a top outfielder that's a free agent next season, they could go after him and replace Harper next season. In sports, it's not always a 1-year process. It takes a couple of years to build back up. And I mean, they're not even going into a full rebuild.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
they're
they
a
don't.
piece or 2 away from.
This is a good situation. Like they are still within striking distance. If they have some things go right for them, they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, they don't need much,
and they can only go up. I mean, they're not going to fall back. Within the years.
It's crazy that this team could end up being 3rd in that division behind the Phillies and Braves. That's the crazy thing of how good that division is.
The NL East has just made a complete, 180.
Oh yeah, for
sure. That division was arguably one of the worst in baseball, and now you're thinking 4 teams could really compete in it.
4 out of the 5 teams could literally make the playoffs. I'm saying they're playoff teams, not obviously 4 teams in division can't make the playoffs. I'm not that stupid, but that's 4 playoff teams. And in the Marlins, maybe in 2-3 years, if development goes right, that could end up being a playoff team as well. So you never know. I would compare the NL East to the NL Central, 4 playoff teams, Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals, Reds. I think the Reds are a playoff team. I don't care what people say.
I know you said they're a sleeper.
They're a
heavy
sleeper. They were my
past.
sleeper team. Someone asked me that a couple weeks ago. We had a little bit of change up in the top 10. Now we have at 10 the Cardinals, and then at 9 the Cubs, 8 Indians, 7 Braves, 6 Phillies, 5 Dodgers, 4 Red Sox, 3 Brewers, 2 Astros, 1 Yankees. The main thing we look at for teams is what they've lost, what they've added. That's the major thing. And also the last thing we kind of look at is interdivisional type of things, and also like scheduling, who they face and when. That's another question. Right now I have the Cardinals at 10. Some people might have them higher. I'm going to tell you why I don't have them. Starting pitching is going to be a strength for them. Miles Mikolas, Jack Flaherty, and then you have Michael Wacha, and then you have Carlos Martinez, and then Adam Wainwright. That's solid 5 guys right there. I think that's top 10 starting pitching right there. I think bullpen, they're going to struggle a little bit. I don't see it being a major strength, but I see it being solid. Andrew Miller, Brett Cecil, Dominic Leone, Luke Gregerson, and then you have your closer, Jordan Hicks. I think it's maybe mid-tier to a little bit under mid-tier. I think, Hicks and Miller, I think those are 2 good guys. Other than that, it's talented depth, I would say. As I said before, talented depth. Then you look at the infield. Infield is stellar. You look at Paul Goldschmidt, Colton Wong, Matt Carpenter, Jed Jerko, whatever his name is, Jed Jerkoff, and then you have Paul DeJong. Then you have Yadier Molina. Goldschmidt, Carpenter, and Molina. I consider catcher infield, because how more infield can you get than catcher?
Yeah, I mean,
you can't get much more infield than catcher. So I consider the catching position part of the infield. I know some people don't, but if you look at infield, you're looking at catcher, because who's closest to the ball other than the batter? It's the catcher. So Yadier Molina, Carpenter, and Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt's a top 5 first baseman. Carpenter, top 5 third baseman, I would say. And then Molina, top 5 catcher. You have 3 top 5 guys in that infield. I wouldn't sleep on Colton Wong. I wouldn't sleep on Jerko or Jerkoff, whatever his name is. And then Paul DeJong. That's a solid infield, I would say. And then outfield, it's going to be more of a question for them. I would say Marcell Ozuna, solid left fielder. Harrison Bader, he has a lot of room to grow. Only 2 years experience. I think he's going to be good. Dexter Fowler's good as well. Jose Martinez, he'll be playing right field. And then Tyler O'Neill. I don't really see it as being a question. I think it's a pretty good outfield. I think the main question for this team is just going to be bullpen. I think that's the only thing is bullpen. Outfield good. Infield is good. Starting pitching is going to be great. Major thing is bullpen. That's going to definitely help down the stretch to keep your pitchers healthy. Even though you have 5 solid pitchers, you do want to keep them healthy. You also, if you run into bad games from one starting pitcher, bullpen does help. Sometimes those games that your good starting pitchers kind of blow in the first 2 or 3 innings, they do matter, because you never know what can happen. Pitching is probably, as we've said before on podcasts, you can compare to a goalie in hockey.
Yeah.
You can compare that, or a quarterback. In football, it relies on that, because in hockey, you rely on your goalie. Baseball, you rely on your pitcher. And then football, you rely on your quarterback. Basically, I know they say defense wins games if you hold them to 0. But the same thing is, you got to score at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much, a defense could do, because the defense can't really score.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have a defense like the Bears or something like that, where they could score defensive touchdowns like a machine. But we do have the Cardinals at 10. They could possibly crack top 8, 7. I don't see them being top 5, because I don't really see them being better than the Yankees, Astros, Brewers, or Red Sox. Maybe they, or the Phillies. But next up at 9, we do have the Cubs. Another team that's going to be interesting in what's going to happen. Starting pitching, John Lester, Kyle Hendricks, Jose Quintana, Cole Hamels, Yu Darvish. That's good starting pitching. I think that could be a top 10 rotation. I think, age is going to be a major question with Hamels, Lester, those 2, but they still produce. That's the thing.
Plenty of experience.
Experience is good, but, it's almost like an old person. If they fall, they could break their hip. It's the same thing with older pitchers. It's like with their arm. You never know what's going to happen with that. Yeah, they still produce, but you never know what can happen. You can say that for any player, but it's more of a concern with the older players, especially pitchers. You never know with their arm.
Yeah.
So I think starting pitching for them isn't really going to be a problem. But the major questions for them is going to be the health of Darvish, age of Lester, age of Hamels. Can Jose Quintana stay up to what he usually does? And then Kyle Hendricks is kind of that, guy who really produces for that team. I think the bullpen is good for them. Carl Edwards Jr., Steve Cishek, Mike Montgomery, Brad Brach, Brandon Kinsler, Tyler Chatwood, Xavier Zendano, Tony Barnett. And you look at their closer, Pedro Strop. That's a good bullpen. Brandon Morrow. I think this is a pretty good bullpen for them. I think that could end up being mid-tier to above mid-tier bullpen. Same thing for the starting pitching, mid-tier to above mid-tier. If they stay healthy and whatever, I think that starting pitching can end up actually being top 10. So I think the major question for them is can the starting pitching stay healthy, and can the bullpen really just keep doing their thing as they've done? Infield, amazing infield, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, and then you have Wilson Contreras. That's an amazing infield. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. I mean, you got Baez, Bryant, Zobrist, and Rizzo. That's a top 5 infield in the league, I would say. You get a top 5 infield, then you look at their outfield, which I think is their major question for this year. Kyle Schwarber, and then you have Albert Almora, Ian Happ, and then Jason Hayward. I think that's going to be their major question for this year, is just going to be outfield. That's pretty much it. Outfield and health of their starting pitching.
Yeah. When it comes, they're a solid team. They've been solid the last few years. Sometimes they've been above and beyond. Sometimes they've been back to reality. But they've always been in that playoff just talk. So I can't see anything changing this year. So, I mean, they're probably not going to be the greatest like they've been.
Yeah, no.
But they're still going to be at that playoff talk level.
Yeah, they'll still be in the conversation come September.
Yeah, because they really didn't lose anyone, and they really gained, because now they're going to have Hamels for a full season, see what he can do. 13 years in the league. Lester also having 13 years in the league. So I mean, they didn't really lose anyone either. They kept and they added a little bit. They didn't add too much, but they added a couple pieces here and there for depth. But I think their major losses are just going to be like Daniel Murphy, and I think that's pretty much it. But I think other than that, I think they're going to be pretty solid.
In a tough division, like usual. So anything can go here and there. I mean, 1 month could really, change the complexion of their season. So you go on a hot stretch, that could boost them ahead. They go on a super cold stretch, that could knock them out.
Yeah, but as we said again, major question just going to be health of their starting pitching, if they can stay healthy and live up to expectations, and also outfield is going to be a question for them as well. Next up, we had the Cubs at 9. We have the Indians at 8, and some people might have them higher, but I don't know how you can have them higher than 8 because of starting pitching. I think their starting pitching is definitely top 10. Could be top 5 in the MLB.
It's taken a hit. It's not as good as it once was.
Kluber, Bauer, Clevenger, Carrasco, Salazar. I think that's great. Also, Shane Bieber. That's a great 6-man rotation. I think their major questions is definitely going to be bullpen. Bullpen right now: Adam Simber, Dan Otero, Tyler Olson, Oliver Perez, and then your closer right now is Brad Hand. It's not that great. Really, your only top guys are Simber and then Brad Hand.
I mean, I wouldn't even
Hand
say
is
Brad
your closer.
Hand.
You don't
I wouldn't
really
even say Brad Hand's even a top 10 closer in the league. So
I mean, this can be his first season that he's like actually going in, knowing he's going to be the guy in the 9th inning.
And that could be different because pitching in the 8th inning and the 9th inning is 2 completely different things.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see because they really don't have relievers. They kind of Hand's a reliever, but they're going to be using him as a closer. Infield, I think they're fine at Jake Bowers, Jason Kipnis, and then obviously everyone knows their left side is probably the best left side in baseball. Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor. I don't think any left side is better than that.
No.
Maybe Arenado and Story are probably in that running for a good duo. I would say Andujar and Gregorius, if healthy, could also make a run for that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in a couple of years they could, but I mean, Jose and Lindor have been doing this for what, 3, 4?
Well, I would say the
years
best right now. It's definitely them, but I'm saying other teams that could have another good left side. But this left side is amazing. And then you have Roberto Perez and Kevin Plawecki at catcher. They took a big hit trading Yan Gomes away to the Nationals. That was a big hit for them. I think their major questions are just going to be outfield and bullpen. I think infield they're fine. I think it's just outfield and bullpen. Because outfield right now, they're looking at Leonis Martin. They're looking at Greg Allen, Bradley Zimmer, Tyler Naquin, and then their DH is Carlos Santana. But Santana can play first as well. So that's why I think first is not going to be a question for them, even though people say Jake Bauers. But I think Jake Bauers is still pretty good. Also, you pair him with Carlos Santana at first. Then you have Kipnis, and then you have Lindor, and then Ramirez. Infield's fine. Starting pitching is great. It's just outfield and bullpen. So that's why we have them at 8. But I think the reason why they really stepped back, they lost some players bullpen-wise. They lost some players in the outfield. Michael Brantley's, that's going to be a big hit to them.
Yeah.
That's the major reason why they're taking a step back. Also losing bullpen pieces. Cody Allen. Losing Cody Allen and Michael Brantley, those are the 2 big pieces that are going to move them back in the rankings for me. Other than that, I think they're going to be pretty solid. So the next up at 7, we have the Braves. And, I thought they would add more this offseason, to be honest. Starting pitching, Teheran, Fulte, Newcomb, Gosman, and then Toussaint. That's pretty solid starting pitching. I mean, they don't really live on the starting pitching. They really live on their bullpen. AJ Minter, Dan Winkler, Johnny Venters, Jesse Biddle, Luke Jackson, Max Fried, Darren O'Day, and the closer, Vizcaino. I think he's a good closer. I think their bullpen is not really going to be a question. I think they have 3 or 4 solid guys back there who could really get them through the season. I think if you at least have 3 guys is all right. 4 guys is pretty good. It's solid to have 4 good guys in the bullpen. If you have 5, you're set. But I think 3 or 4 is pretty good. So I think that's why the Braves are going to be, that's not really a question for them. Starting pitching is not going to be a question. Just the back end could be a little bit of a question. Infield, there's no questions at all. Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, Josh Donaldson, Johan Camargo, Dansby Swanson, Charlie Culberson, and Tyler Flowers, and then Brian McCann. I think their infield is good. The only thing that's really going to be a question is health of Donaldson. That's probably going to be the only question. But if he produces, that could probably end up being top 5 outfield in the MLB.
Yeah.
I would say Freeman, Albies, Donaldson, Swanson. I think that's top 5. And then you had Tyler Flowers, who I think is still pretty good. And then Brian McCann as your backup catcher. He still produces, which is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Brian McCann. Then you look at the outfield. I think outfield
is amazing.
I think could be definitely end up being, it has the potential to be top 5.
It does.
Easily.
You have Acuna, Adam Duvall, Ender Inciarte, and then Nick Markakis. That's 4 great guys right there. Then Markakis had a great year last year. Inciarte did as well. Acuna, we all know what he could do. And then Duvall, he's still a solid player. So I think, the real question is just going to be back end of pitching. That's it.
Yeah.
Their front end of pitching, they have, if you combine bullpen and starting pitching, they have 6 or 7 solid guys. 6 or 7. Teheran, Fulte, Newcomb is solid. Minter, Winkler, Venters, and Vizcaino. That's 6 or 7 good guys right there. So I would say at the trade deadline, they're going to be looking more of pitching than it is, fielding. But that's why we have them, what do we have at 7? 7. So the next at 6, we have the Phillies. Some people put the Braves above the Phillies, but we're going to put the Phillies above. If you look at their starting pitching, I think it's good. Aaron Nola, Jake Arrieta, Nick Pivetta, and then you have Pivetta, whatever it is. Vince Velasquez, Zach Eflin, and then Jared Eichhoff, maybe another jerk-off. But I think they're starting pitching. Same thing again, back end. But how many teams have back end problems?
Yeah.
Really, for starting pitching, you only need 2 or 3 guys to get you through the season.
Yeah.
So even if you look in the playoffs, you really only need 2 or 3 pitchers.
Yeah.
2 is good. 3 is really, if you have 3 solid pitchers for the playoffs, you're most likely going pretty far because all
Yeah.
you need is like 2 pitchers and then 3 bullpen guys for the playoffs.
And most of the time, that fifth starter becomes another guy out of the bullpen.
In the bullpen. So you see that.
Just
So you
adds
really only
arms.
need 2 starters and like 3 relievers for the
Mhm.
playoffs. So you're not. People think you need like 4 starting pitchers. You really only need 2 or 3 starting pitchers and 3 or 4 relievers, and your pitching is sound. So, and then you look at their bullpen. Tommy Hunter, Pat. I think it's Neshek. Adam Morgan, Juan Nicasio, and then Jose Alvarez. And then you look at their closer, David Robertson, which is probably their one, not their biggest because we know who they signed. But he's definitely one of their bigger pickups of the offseason, David Robertson. So you really have maybe like 1, 2, you have like 3 solid guys in the bullpen, and then you have, Nola and Arrieta for pitching. So really you're looking at 5 or 6 solid guys. So if you're looking at trade deadline, they're probably going to target pitching.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
So that's why you also have to look at that as well, is trade deadline. So can they get better? Is there room to grow? There is here. So that's why, they have 4 or 5 solid pitchers. I think they should sign Keuchel. Keuchel will put them over that mark of solid pitchers they have on their team.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And you look at infield. Infield is solid for them. I think very stellar. Reese Hoskins, or I don't know how you pronounce his first name. I think it's Reese.
Yep.
Reese.
Yep.
Some of these guys got weird names. And then Cesar Hernandez, Scott Kingery, and then you have Miguel Franco. I like saying his name. And then Gene Segura, and then JT Realmuto.
Another huge addition in the offseason.
Segura, Realmuto, and then you have Harper, who we're going to say in a little bit. And then you have Robertson, and then maybe they signed Keuchel. They said they wanted to sign him. They said they were in on.
And don't forget Kutch, too.
Andrew McCutcheon wasn't a bad signing, too.
We're getting outfield here. But, and then you look at outfield, which I would say is a good strength of this team. Andrew McCutcheon, and then you have Odubel Herrera, and then Harper. Those 3 right there, that's easily a top 5 outfield, I would say.
Yeah.
Those 3 right there, and then you have Hoskins. Also, Hoskins can play outfield as well.
Yeah.
Which is a thing.
He definitely struggles there, though.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you need him, that's the type of thing that's good. Flexibility, I would say, is good.
It helps those pitchers a lot better. Keep them at first base.
Yeah. And then Hernandez, Kingery, and then you have Franco, and then Segura, and then Realmuto. That's a top 10 infield right there, I would say. Bullpen, I would say their major questions are just going to be back end of pitching. Same thing again. You can compare them to the Braves. It's just back end of pitching.
Yep.
That's really it. And they have Hector Neris as well. He's pretty solid. So, I mean, that's why we have them at 6. Just back end of pitching is going to be the question. And then you have Dodgers. Dodgers are always going to be in contention. I think the past, couple years, pitching is not going to be a question for them. Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Hyunjin Ryu, Rich Hill, and Kenta Maeda. 5 great, not great, but I would say
the top 3 are definitely solid. And we talked about how the top 3 are the most important.
Well, I mean, we could look at Rich Hill. I think Rich Hill is a good pitcher. He has experience. 3.91 ERA, and look at the past couple years.
Yes, he's a solid 4.
3.66, 3.32, 1.83, 2.25, 1.55, 1.69. Those are his years since 2014.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely better than most 4s in the
And then even if you look at before that, he had an awful year in Cleveland, 6.28. Damn, he played 63 games.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And 6 point. Oh, wait, but he only had 38. That's weird. 38 innings pitched in 63 games.
Probably just came in, faced a batter every now and again.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of funny. And then in Boston, 1.83 ERA. So, I mean, he had a bunch of bad years, and then he really hit his upswing in 2012.
Well, yeah, I mean, he kind of switched. I mean, they transformed him from a reliever to a starter. So
yeah, so, I mean, Rich Hill, he's a great pitcher. He's very underrated. So I think that starting pitching can end up being – it's definitely top 10, could end up being top 5 for their, whatever they could be. Then they have Joe Kelly, Pedro Baez, Dylan Floro, Scott Alexander, Tony Cingrani, Ross Stripling, and then Kenley Jansen. That's like 5 solid bullpen guys, right? 4 or 5 solid bullpen guys.
Yeah.
And then you add that to 5 solid starting pitchers. they're looking at least 8 solid pitchers.
Mhm.
And that, I don't know how many teams you see that for. In many teams. And Kenley Jansen, he's top 5 closer in the game. Then you look at their infield, which is top 5 as well. You look at Max Muncy, Chris Taylor, Justin Turner, David Freese, Corey Seager. Catcher's going to be a little bit of a question mark with Russell Martin and Austin Barnes. I think he could hold down the fort, though.
Mm-hmm.
But I think their infield, also you could see Cody Bellinger play first as well. But, I mean, that infield is top 10, could possibly be top 5 as well. Then you look at outfield, which I think is their biggest question out of everything. Jock Peterson, Kike Hernandez, AJ Pollock, Cody Bellinger, Alex Verdugo. I think out of anything, technically, that's the biggest question.
Yeah, and it's not even
a
bad.
It's not even a weakness. But if you're talking in terms of biggest question mark on the team, the outfield, and it's crazy. You look at Pollock, Bellinger, and Peterson.
That's a very, very good start.
Those are 3 household names. I mean.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then you had Kike Hernandez and Alex Verdugo as backups. That's the craziest thing. But I don't know, just catching, I guess, if you really want to zone in on one position, is just catching. But overall, infield, top 10, outfield, probably it could end up being top 10. So that's why we have the Dodgers at 5 on our list. At 4, we have the Red Sox. The major thing here, we'll bring up, their roster. Starting pitching, same thing again. Sale, Price, Porcello, Rodriguez, Eovaldi, same thing as last year. Just the major thing is Sale's, shoulder and everything that happened at the back end of last year. Can Price kind of do better than he did last year to about the same. Porcello.
He just got to replicate the season that he had last year. That was by far his best season in Boston.
Yeah, and then Porcello, not that great.
He's a really solid 3, though.
Yeah, he's a solid
all that we need him
3
for.
or 4. Yeah. And then Eduardo Rodriguez, Nathan Eovaldi. That could.
I think Rodriguez is the biggest question mark in that rotation.
Yeah, when healthy, his stuff is probably some of the best in baseball, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, I would say Porcello is a question mark as well because 4.26 career ERA. He's only had 2009. He had a sub 4, but it was 3.96. So I wouldn't even call that sub 4 because he's barely away from 4. He's only had 2 seasons sub 4 ERA, and one of them was 3.43, and the other one was 3.15. And those were 2 years. One was in 2014. The other one was in 2016. So, I mean, I wouldn't really count Porcello in there. Rodriguez could also be a question mark for them as well. 4.12 career ERA. Last year, he had a pretty decent year, 13-5, 3.82. ERA is lowest with Boston. And then he also pitched the most games. So actually, I would put Rodriguez at the 3, Porcello at the 4.
Yeah, the important thing is that they can eat up innings.
Yeah, because they're gonna have to pitch as many innings as possible.
Have to worry about having to pull him after 3 or 4 innings.
If he gets pulled after 3 or 4, the Red Sox are in trouble for that game. I mean, it's just
and then we'll move into bullpen. Everyone knows this is the biggest question for Boston so far. Matt Barnes, Keith Hembry, Tyler Thornburg, who actually played for the Brewers before, Brandon Workman, Hector Velasquez, and then you got the closer Ryan Brazier. I could see the ceiling being 15 to 20, but as it's looking right now, it's looking like 20 to 25 ranking. So that's not going to help the team. And then you look at infield, Mitch Moreland, Steve Pearce, Brock Holt, Dustin Pedroia, Rafael Devers, Eduardo Nunez. As of now, I would label that in the 15 to 20. I think ceiling would probably be 10 to 15 for that. But right now, I'd probably label them the back end of 15 to 20 at 18 or 19 for infield ranking wise. Just the major things to look at: Steve Pearce kind of being a flash in the pan. Brock Holt kind of bouncing around, doesn't really have a set place. Dustin Pedroia's age is going to be a major thing. Rafael Devers, he had a pretty decent, only playing in 60 games in his first season.
Struggled with a hamstring last year.
Yeah, having injuries last year. He batted .240 in 121 games for the Red Sox last season. So, I mean, he's going to be a major question mark. Pedroia is going to be a question mark for that infield. Can Steve Pearce live up to the hype? Eduardo Nunez, he's a very up and down player.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Very up and down. Before he was with the Red Sox, he was not that great. So we'll see if he could play up to what he can be. That's going to be a question mark. What can Devers do? Age of Bajoria, Brock Holt, he's another up and down player. Steve Pearce, could he be a flash in the pan? And Mitch Moreland, what could he do? So those are I would say another somewhat question mark. That's why I labeled them as a 15 to 20 with the back end being there, maybe like 18 to 22 solid piece right there. And then you have Bogarts as well. He's up there. He's not a question mark. He's probably
he's top 10 shortstop in baseball.
He's a top 10 shortstop. But if you look at, the other positions, Mitch Moreland, I wouldn't put him at top 10 first baseman.
Maybe not all around first baseman, but he's top 10 defensively.
How many people are hitting the first though? That's the thing.
No, I'm not talking about that. Like any kind of bad throws, and he picks everything.
Yeah.
Which as a first baseman, I mean, I played first base. That's one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do, because there are so many times where your fielders are throwing off balance and they got to make quick throws, and they're not always going to be the best. So you got to be able to pick that ball.
But I mean, if you're judging him off of bad throws, how many bad throws are the Red Sox throwing? You know what I mean? Because if you're judging someone on how bad something else is, I mean, you kind of have to look at the other guys that are in the field. Because if you're gonna judge a catcher on how good his defending is, how many times are your pitchers throwing in the dirt that you have to literally rate him on bad pitches?
Well, see,
so,
when you have the confidence that your guy will make the play, it takes a little bit of pressure off of you, because you don't have to worry about being perfect every single time, and you can like try and do like a little extra to get that ball and just get a quick throw off, knowing that at the other end, that Mitch is gonna pick it if it's a little short. It's the mental aspect of that.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Sandy Leon and Christian Vasquez at catcher.
Sandy Leon might get traded.
Yeah, Sandy Leon might get traded. So that's another question mark for them. I would say the biggest question marks for the team are probably infield and bullpen. Outfield, we all know they're solid. I would say their strengths are outfield and starting pitching, which they relied on last year, but they're going to have to rely on them maybe a little bit more this year. They have Benintendi in left, Jackie Bradley in center, Mookie Betts in right, and then they have JD Martinez at DH. That's going to be a good thing. Betts and Martinez are probably going to be their same old. Benintendi as well. So outfield, not really much to say there. But basically just infield and then bullpen for the Red Sox at 4. And then you look at next, we have the Brewers, which they added a lot this offseason. I would say not losing is more of an addition. Would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, with the success they had last year, I mean, not losing really anybody big is a big addition.
Yeah, because our starting pitching is going to stay intact. We're going to, miss Suter, but that's fine. We have Chacin, I like his name as well, Chase Anderson, Zach Davies, Brandon Woodruff, Jimmy Nelson, Freddie Peralta. I think those 6 guys at starting pitching can hold down the fort. We were ranked 5th last year in starting pitching. Yeah, we don't have the huge names. We don't have the ace, I guess you could say. But Chacin's slider was working last year. He threw a slider the most out of I dropped my pen, out of any pitcher in the MLB. So Chacin had a great year. He had one bad stretch that made his ERA a little bit higher, but if you take that out, he had a sub-3 ERA for most of the season. He had like a 1-month bad stretch. But overall, starting pitching is probably going to be, again, top 10 in the MLB, probably top 5. Then you look at bullpen. Oh, Jesus Christ. Hader, Knebel, Burns, Albers, Claudio, Guerra, and then you have Jacob Barnes as well, Bobby Waltor's ACL, RIP. And then you have Jeremy Jeffress. That's, again, going to be a top 5 bullpen in the MLB. Hader, Knebel, Burns is crazy. Claudio, he's good. And then Jeffress. And then we just signed Alex Wilson as well. I'm telling you, we have 5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got like 6 solid bullpen guys right there who could easily, go. And then you add that to an already top 5 starting pitching. I would label them probably the best bullpen in the MLB. Maybe I would put Brewers and Yankees 1 and 2 with a toss-up, but some days are bad, some days are good. So I would put them 1 and 2 toss up. But I think overall, Brewers are going to have a top 5 pitching. When you look at infield, Aguilar and Thames holding down first base, that's probably one of the best first base duos in the MLB.
Yeah.
And then you have Mike Moustakas at second, Hernan Perez backing him up. And then you have Travis Shaw at third. And then you have Orlando Arcia, who is young as well, 3 years in the league, and he's still growing. Great defensive shortstop. His offense is really starting to hit. We saw in the playoffs, he hit like 3 or 4 home runs.
Yeah.
Doing really good. We added Yasmani Grandal. I would say that's our biggest add, along with Ben Gamel. And then we're in on Craig Kimbrell as well with the favorites to get him. So even if we add him, that pitching is probably going to be the best in the league if you add him, because then you have like 7 solid guys in the bullpen. So infield is great defensively. Aguilar is good defensively. Moustakas is good. Perez is crazy good at defense. Shaw is great at defense. Arcia is good at defense. Yasmani Grandal is a top 5 catcher in the league as well. Then you had Manny Pena. He's easily a top 15, sometimes top 10 catcher. Silver Glove winner. We just released Eric Kratz. Then you look at our outfield. Outfield's top 5 in the league. Ryan Braun, Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich. All 3 of them have the capability to hit over 300 each, which is crazy.
Yeah.
If you have 3 outfielders that could hit, Cain hit over 300, Yelich over 300. Braun didn't, but he does have the capability to do that, which we don't need him to, which is the crazy thing, because we could see Aguilar, he hit 275. Moustakas can hit around 275. Shaw can hit around 275. Arcia, we don't even need him to do that. Grandal, we don't, because it's pitching. We only need, we only really need like 3 to 5 runs out of our, offense at the very least.
I mean, that was the one thing that stopped them last season in the postseason. The offense just kind of wasn't as good as it was in the regular season, and I'll chalk that up as a lack of experience in the playoffs.
Yeah, because we're still growing. Because our starting pitching is like it's pretty decent. 6, 2, 4, 5, 10. That's like not that bad in terms. But if you look at our bullpen, there's not a lot of experience. Hader 2, Knable 5, Burns 1, Albers 13, Claudio 5. So we still need some more experience in our bullpen. But if you look at our infield, it's got a lot of experience. Aguilar 5, Thames 8, Moustakas 8, Perez 7, Shaw 4, Arcia 3, Grandal 7, Pena 8, Braun 12. So and then we have Ben Gamel in the outfield as well as our, like our 4th rotating outfielder. So that's where I put them at. We have them at 3.
Yeah, definitely a team with potential.
Yeah, and then we have the Astros at 2. Another team to look for in World Series contention. I guess you could label our World Series contenders as Phillies, Dodgers, Red Sox, Brewers, Astros, and Yankees.
Yeah.
I would say usually the top 6 teams are in World Series. Maybe the Braves we could throw in there. So I would say the top 7 teams this year. And I don't think the Indians will be. I don't think the Cubs or Cardinals will. But, when you think about it, technically anyone's in contention for World Series once the season starts.
Yeah, everyone's 0-0 except for the Mariners and the A's.
So then if you look at the Astros, Verlander, Cole, Miley, McHugh, and Josh James, Justin Verlander, ace. Garrett Cole, ace. Wade Miley, he's been stellar the past couple years. Last season with the Brewers, he had a sub-3 ERA, Wade Miley. So he's been really good.
Yeah, pulling over here.
Yeah, he had a crazy year last year. So, and if you go look at his highlights, he had a sub-3 ERA. So he's a solid 3, and I think he's going to build on what he did last year, especially with the Astros pitching coaches and stuff like that. They do a really good job. Colin McHugh is still pretty solid. Josh James, Lance McCullers. Then you look at their bullpen. Their bullpen is actually really good. Hector Rendon, Will Harris, Ryan Presley, Brad Peacock, and then you have Roberto Ozuna. Just make sure he doesn't hit you. But I think they have a solid 6 or 7 pitchers throughout all of that. So that's why that's not even pitching is not a question for them. Then you look at infield. It's one of the top 5 infield in the league. Yuli Gurriel, AJ Reed. They're backing up that first base right there. And then they have Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, and Carlos Correa, and Lenimus Diaz. And then Robinson Crinos, and then you have Max Stassi as your backup catcher. That's a top 5 infield in the league. Bregman, Correa, and Altuve with third, shortstop, and second. And then first base, Yuli Gurriel, who's actually still pretty good. Losing Marwin Gonzalez is probably their biggest loss, I would say. Their biggest additions, probably Michael Brantley, I would say.
Yeah.
But their outfield also looking top 10 this year. Michael Brantley, Tony Kemp, George Springer, Josh Reddick, Jake Marisnick, and Tyler White. Brantley, Springer, and Reddick right there. That's solid.
Yeah.
Left, center, and right there. So that's why they're number 2, because they really, if you want to label a question mark for them,
it's hard to find one.
They have depth at outfield with Tony Kemp and Jake Marisnick. Catching is good with Krinos and Stassi. AJ Reed and Yuli Gurriel is a good one too. I guess if you really want to nitpick, I guess you could say starting pitching.
The back end of the starting pitching.
I wouldn't even say bullpen. They have depth and they have talent, so I wouldn't even label depth for bullpen. I would literally just say starting pitching in the back end if you want to nitpick, but I really don't think there's anything wrong with this team.
Yeah.
So then number 1, we have the Yankees, another team there's really not any holes for. If you do want to nitpick for this team, I guess if you want to say, I don't know, I don't really see a weakness. I guess if you want to say starting pitching could be a weakness, but I mean, you have Severino, Paxton, Tanaka, Happ, and Cece, and then Germán, Luciaga, and then you have, or Lasagna, as I call him, or a lot of people call him, Jordan Montgomery's coming back halfway through the season. Then you look at the bullpen, Dylan Betances, Zach Britton, Adam Ottavino, Chad Green, Jonathan Holder, Tommy Canley, Luis Sessa. He's having a good spring training. He hasn't had a good last couple of years, but hey, even if he has a sub-4 ERA, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I think he's just one of those guys that needed to switch. He was the starter.
He was the starter,
and now he's going to be a reliever.
Even when he was in the bullpen for the Yankees last year, he did good. But when he started, he didn't do good. Him in the bullpen is going to, even if he has, say he has a 3.6 ERA. That's fine for him, especially as he's not even going to be the main guy. It's going to be behind Betances, Britton, Ottavino, Green, Holder, and Canley.
I mean, he'd be one of those guys to just come in to stop the bleeding. Like if they have to pull someone,
or just like a holdover guy.
If if they maybe have an opener, like they run, because I know Aaron Boone has talked about like doing an opener, here and there.
Opener. And then person we didn't even mention is the closer, Waldis Chapman, top 5 closer in the league.
If he just stays healthy.
Yeah, and then you look at the infield, Luke Voigt and Greg Bird.
2 great first basemen.
2 good first basemen. They could play defense and they could hit. I also heard Bird has been doing really good in spring training. Did you see the home runs they're hitting?
They're going.
They're doing really good. So I don't think first base is going to be a question. DJ LeMahieu and Tyler Wade. Wade's a great defenseman. The bat is not good, but he's like our 4th string second baseman too, because you have LeMahieu can play second, Torres can play second, Tulowitzki, we can even put him over there. So he's like our 4th string second baseman. He's like our utility guy. He can even play outfield as well. Then you have Andujar at 3rd. He's been working on his defense. That's his only question is just throwing. Stopping the ball, he doesn't really have a problem with. It's just getting it across the diamond in a timely fashion is his big problem. Torres, we don't even have to talk about him because we know what he could do. I guess the only questions you want to say for this team is Gregorius coming back sooner and Tulowitzki's health. I would say the main things are Tulowitzki's health, and that's literally it. That's the only.
Gary Sanchez can only go up. I mean, last year was like an all-time low. I'm pretty sure he can't get any worse than that. But even if
you look at before that, and he played a full season, almost a full season, his most complete season, I would say, in 2017, he hit 280, which is he had 20 doubles. 20 doubles for a catcher is actually pretty good, and 33 home runs.
90 ribbies. I mean, and that was in 122 games. He had 90 RBI. So, I mean, imagine if he played just like 20, 30 more games.
And he hit 280 with 120 strikeouts.
Yeah. I mean, that's Gary Sanchez. I think he's one to look out for. I think, you got
almost comeback player of the year, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And then you look at the outfield, depth. You have, I'm not even going to talk about Ellsbury. I don't even consider him on the team.
Yeah.
Brett Gardner, Aaron Hicks, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and Clint Frazier. He's not on the main roster right now. He's probably going to start in AAA. Yeah. But then you have Clint Frazier, and then you have Florial sitting down there as well.
Yeah.
So you have 2 outfielders. So if Judge does go out, we could have Stanton take his place. We could have Clint Frazier come up as someone Florial. We could have him. We're not even spending a lot of money either.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. We're not spending a lot of money on Sevy. We're not spending, a lot of money on Paxton. Tanaka doesn't have that big of a contract, but starting pitching is going to be held down very well. Severino, he's a solid one. Paxton could be a one on a lot of teams. Tanaka could be a one on a lot of teams. And then our 4 and 5 are Happ and CeCe.
I mean,
CeCe's having his best number since 2008, and even Happ as well.
And I mean, you got experience down there and less pressure because,
that's what I'm saying.
These guys are used to being number 1, number 2 guys, and they're playing 4 or 5.
Happ was a 1 with the Phillies. He was 1 with the Blue Jays, even the Pirates as well. And now he's a 4, and he's still having career numbers. That's the crazy thing. CeCe's having his best number since 2008. Then you have German, Lasagna, and then Montgomery still sitting there, and Tarpley as well. So even if injuries do happen, we have the guys to back it up. And then even in bullpen, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have like 7 solid guys in the bullpen, and I would say about 4 solid guys in the starting pitching. So you're looking at least 10 solid guys in pitching, depth and talent in the infield, and then depth and talent in the outfield. So I guess, the only question is just Tulowitzki, but it's not even a question if you have Voit, Bird, LeMahieu, and Duhar, Torres, and Gregorius coming back.
Because you're going to start Gleyber Torres at second. And, if Tulowitzki goes down, you just move Torres over to short and put LeMahieu at second.
And then you have Tyler Wade as well.
Yeah.
And then I just can't really see much of a question mark because it's not like they have talent and no depth. They have talent and depth as well because we have a great minor league system too. So that's why we have the Yankees at 1 because there's really not a blaring, question mark.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just health of Tulowitzki and Ellsbury doesn't even matter with Gardner, Hicks, Judge, Stanton, Frazier, and then Florial sitting down there as well. And then even if we have the trade pieces to say we have like 4 injuries in the infield, say Bird goes down, Wade's not doing good, Tulowitzki goes down, and Gregorius comes back late. We still have the money. We still have the farm pieces to go out there and still pick someone up. That's the crazy thing. And we're still not spending that much money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we have these guys for a lot more years. We still got Stanton for a lot more years. We're going to sign Judge to an extension. We just signed Hicks to a crazy extension. Gardner's going to be gone. But Frazier's going to take his spot. Sanchez, we have for a couple more years. Didi's going to be a free agent, but I don't mind that. Tulowitzki's going to be gone. But we still have Andujar for a long time, Torres for a long time. We're going to have LeMahieu for next year. I'm sure Voit is going to stay with the team for a while. We're going to sign Batanzas to an extension. But, I mean, there's not that much, question mark. Even like the pitching, it was ranked 10th in the league last year. And then now you bring in Paxton for a full season.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in Severino, he's a solid 1. Tanaka, he's still good. Happ's still putting up career numbers. CeCe's putting up career numbers. I can only see it getting better.
Yeah.
From here. And then I didn't even think about this. Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even think about him as well.
Gio Gonzalez could fill in to start the season while Sevy and CeCe. I know CeCe's gonna be out the first 2 to 3 starts, and then Sevy's out for the first month.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe they'll put Sevy on like the DL. I don't know what the day length, whatever it is. Put him on the D, and then you just bring up Gio Gonzalez. That's just another starting pitcher.
Yeah,
who could still produce. It's just a bunch of producers, on this team. So I just don't see that many, question marks with the team. So then we're going to get into a little bit of get a time check here. You got a military time. Where did you serve? 2:05. So we're going to get into our, our rankings here, standings, you could say. We're going to get into the shitty divisions first, the obvious ones. So NL West, we got Dodgers in first, and then Rockies, D-backs, Giants, and Padres. D-backs, Giants, and Padres, that could be a toss-up. If Padres come in fourth, who cares? They're not making the playoffs. So, and then you look at the AL West, Astros, Athletics, Angels, Rangers, and then Mariners. Astros are taking the bacon there. Then you look at the Central, Indians, Twins, Royals, White Sox, Tigers. I would compare the AL Central to the NL West, top-heavy team, Indians, Dodgers, and like that mid-tier second team with the Twins and the Rockies, you could say. So I would compare those two divisions. I would compare the NL East with the NL Central. I would also compare the AL East. I think they're really in a league of their own. 2 top teams, and then the rest are cheeks.
Yeah.
So, and then we have the NL East. We have the Phillies, Braves, Nationals, Mets, and then Marlins. That's my eye's going to be on that division. I'm going to be intrigued of what happens with that. I think that's going to be the major storyline of this year is the NL East, and then also the NL Central. We have the Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals, Reds, and then Pirates. I know most people are going to have Reds under the Pirates, but I think it's going to be a toss-up between Reds and Pirates down there. But I think Brewers are going to take that division as we had them third in our rankings. And then in the AL East, we have Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Jays, and then Orioles. That'll be an interesting one to watch to see what the Rays do. They're another question mark team.
They are.
As we said before, of what could happen. And then we have it's not really a bracket. We wrote it out like a bunch of clowns, but we call it a bracket. So for the AL wildcard, we have Twins, Reds. All right, we're idiots enough to have all the home teams winning. I don't know why. We didn't really choose it that way.
No, it just kind of
happened that way. It's how the matchups laid out. I'm trying to think of last year. All the home teams won last year, now that I think about it, because Yankees beat the Athletics, Red Sox beat the Yankees, Astros beat the Indians. They had home field. And then Red Sox beat the Astros. And then Red Sox ended up beating the Dodgers. Home field. And then I know Dodgers beat the Brewers. That was the only thing, though. But I think other than that, the Brewers beat the Rockies. They had home field. And then, Dodgers beat the Braves. So technically last year, there was only one series.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I guess if you want to call the play-in game with the Cubs and the Brewers, but I really don't count that playoffs, but a lot of people do. So AL wildcard, Twins versus Red Sox. NL wildcard, Cubs versus Braves. We have the Braves. ALDS, Red Sox versus Yankees. We have Yankees. We didn't put any games on this. We just picked like a winner.
Yeah.
ALDS, Indians, Astros. We have Astros winning that. NLDS, we have Braves and Brewers. We have Brewers. NLDS, Phillies and Dodgers. We have Dodgers, but we gave the edge to the Dodgers. We didn't really.
That one was one of the tougher ones.
That was one of the tougher ones, but we're not ruling out the Phillies. We're just giving the edge to the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. So then ALCS, we have Astros, Yankees. We have Yankees. That's another edge. We didn't really landslide the Yankees. We had that one going 6, I think.
Yeah, 6.
So that's not really like an edge, but it's not a landslide. And then NLCS, we have Dodgers, Brewers. We have Brewers in 7, so that's an edge. World Series, we have Brewers versus Yankees. Then we give Yankees, I think, in 6.
5 or 6. Just a matchup, I think the Yankees.
Yeah, I think matchup-wise, 5 or 6. I really don't mind with that since I'm a Brewers and Yankees fan, so I wouldn't, be opposed to that either. I think if you want to look, AL Cy Young, you kind of look. Verlander's 1, Kluber, Severino, Sale, and Snell.
Yeah, I mean those are good.
I think those are going to be the top. I think if you're looking at AL MVP, you got to look at Judge, Betts,
Trout,
Martinez. Yeah, Trout. Maybe Jose Martinez.
Altuve.
Yeah, Altuve. Trout could be one. Although if the Angels don't make it, I don't think he'd get MVP.
I mean, he's won MVP when they haven't made the playoffs anyway.
No, but look at who he's going to go against. Judge, Betts, Martinez.
Well, I mean, back in 2016, he went up against Betts and he still won, even though the Red Sox made
But he's got more competition now.
And the Angels didn't.
Yeah, I just can't see it. I just can't see him doing it again if they don't make the playoffs. I know he's the best outfielder in the league, I'll say, but the players he's going to be running against is going to be hard for him to win.
Yeah,
especially when they come third. I don't know what they came in that year, but coming in third in the division probably. I just don't see him, and I think it's stupid if an MVP wins if they don't make the playoffs and they come in third in their division. They would come in 3, 4, 5, basically in like 9th place in the AL overall. I don't know how you can give a 9th place team the MVP when I'd rather give it to Yankees or Red Sox, Indians or Astros.
Yeah,
when that team actually did good and Judge or Betts or Martinez or someone actually did something for their team.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at NL East. Nola's going to be in contention. Maybe Fulte, Scherzer, maybe Corbin.
Yeah, Corbin could be up there.
DeGrom, yeah. No one really from the Brewers. They don't have that ace. It's just a bunch of guys who all have sub-4, sub-3 ERAs.
Yep.
Cardinals, I can't really see anyone. Cubs, I can't see anyone. Maybe Darvish if he is healthy. NL West, Kershaw.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe Greinke, maybe Bumgarner, but I think that's pretty much it. If I had to pick for the East, I'd probably have to pick Nola or DeGrom
Yeah.
from that aspect over here. Maybe Scherzer, but I think it's definitely coming from the NL East. I think the Cy Young, I have to pick Verlander.
Yeah.
I don't think Snell's going to replicate what he did, so I have to go
It's really
Verlander
hard.
again. If I have to go MVP, the NL, I might have to go Yelich.
Go Yelich.
Maybe Harper,
Bryce
depending on what he
Harper.
does. Maybe Freddie Freeman. Yeah, I don't see many viable options. I don't see anyone from the Cubs.
It's definitely not as competitive as the American League.
No, I don't see really anyone from the West there. So no one from the West. Harper and Freeman from here. Yelich, maybe Kane. Depending on what he does.
Maybe Goldschmidt.
Maybe Goldschmidt if the Cardinals really,
But as of now, we don't have Cardinals in that wild card spot. We have our wild card in the NL going to Braves and Cubs, and then Red Sox and Twins, and that one. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the MLB this year. Right now, we have Yankees winning it all. I know a lot of people have that same prediction. Some people have the Brewers, some people have the Astros, some people have the Red Sox, some people have Indians, Phillies. A lot of people have different aspects. Some people might even have the Rays. Who knows? There's millions of people everywhere, billions, whatever it may be. So people have different predictions. You never know. You never know what could happen. You never know. Hey, maybe the Marlins win 100 games. You never know in sports.
Yeah, anything can happen. Any team on any day could beat any team. So
hey, because it's all the same sport. At the end of the day, it's still baseball. I'm saying. So you never know.
It all comes down if a bounce goes your way or not. Basically. On most things.
So you never know what's going to happen. One team can end up being really good. Like, look at the Nationals last year. I'm sure people had them maybe top 5 last year as well.
They didn't make playoffs.
They didn't make the playoffs. So that could happen this year. Could happen the other way around with the Athletics and Rays, even though the Rays didn't make the playoffs.
But, I mean, nobody had them winning 90 games.
Yeah. So you never know what could happen in any sport. The only sport, I guess you could really say it's very predictable is basketball.
Yeah.
Usually the best team wins. I mean, I told a bunch of people the Lakers weren't going to make the playoffs, and like, I said
LeBron makes the whole team apparently. So
yeah, like I'm a LeBron fan, but I don't believe in the thing where if they have him, they immediately make the playoffs. So I think I don't know. I told people they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they didn't. And they got knocked out last night with the loss against the Nets, but we're talking about baseball here. So, again, the whole thing with the basketball. But I think the most unpredictable sport is probably baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball,
easily.
hockey.
Baseball, hockey. Honestly, I'd probably might put hockey over baseball.
Yeah, hockey is really unpredictable because the team that usually
look at like the Hurricanes, the Coyotes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
look at the Kings this year.
That much, so I can't really.
But in years past, like you got the number 1 team, and they can get swept in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like
anything
last
could
year,
happen.
The Red Sox being the 1 seed and winning everything, that rarely happens in baseball as it is.
Because you talk about like one hop, one bounce, going one way. In hockey, it's like one deflection, one just screen. That's it.
Yeah, it just takes like one small thing, like because going up in 2 runs in baseball is much easier than going up 2 goals in hockey.
Yeah,
because to come back from 2 runs, it's still pretty difficult, but not as if it was coming back from 2 goals.
It takes 1 inning. I mean, you get one guy on and hit a home run. In hockey, you got to get 2 goals, which is hard in hockey. I mean, it's not easy to score.
And basically in baseball, you're always somewhat in the loop of playing. In hockey, you can only end up playing like 25 minutes of a 60-minute game.
That's like the big thing with baseball is with just about every other sport. If you're up, since there's the clock, you can just waste it. Whereas in baseball, if you're down, the other team has to give you a chance.
Yeah. They have to get you out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's our rankings. You could agree, disagree, you can comment, whatever, but they're just predictions. Predictions are predictions. And at the end of the season, we'll see what happens. Maybe someone doesn't make the playoffs. Maybe someone does. Who knows? People are wrong in predictions all the time. We see it in every single sport. People being wrong with predictions, people being right. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the MLB this year. It's definitely going to be a really good season, especially with the AL. It's going to be a gauntlet between those 4 teams. I think the NL, I think, isn't going to be as competitive. I think the only competitive thing about the NL is just the East.
Yeah.
I think that's literally it. I think other than that, it's Brewers and Dodgers, and then the rest could cut their throats on who's after that. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But that's it. We will be back next week, I believe, with the Open Table Sports podcast on Friday. Oh, I forgot it. I almost forgot again. The giveaway. Dom, you could announce the giveaway here since
So we did a giveaway on our Twitter of a Color Rush Saquon Barkley jersey. We had about 37 retweets.
38, 40, something in there.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
We'll be doing more in the future, but our first winner of the Saquon Barkley Color Rush jersey is at Yorkmania. So at Yorkmania on Twitter, just DM us for details, and we'll get that shipped out to you ASAP.
And because what really determined that was people who were most active on our account. That's the main thing. We love activity. We've tweeted it out before. If you're active on our account, that's how we tally it.
Yeah.
Retweets, likes, comments, all that type of stuff. We love that. So even if we're not doing a giveaway, remain active because we will tally those and we will actually put it on a board and we will actually tally those of how active you are with each other. And that's what's going to determine giveaways and stuff like that. So as long as you're active and stuff like that, that's all we care about. So that's it for the MLB 2019 season preview. I don't know if we're going to be live tomorrow with the daily recap. I know I have work. I got work tonight as well. So there's going to be no daily recap or whatever. So we'll be back, I believe, Monday.
Yeah,
Monday next with the daily recap. So we will see you then. Thank you for listening. I'm so pale. Man, it's hot in here.